Hey everybody, welcome back to Conquest of Aya. In this week's video, we're going to talk about a tournament I played in and ran yesterday at Titan Games and Hobbies. We had 10 players come out with all 7 factions represented, which was awesome. And this was our biggest turnout for a tournament yet at Titan Games. We've run a few of these, and the community is really just growing and getting on its feet there. We got a great group of players. I had a blast in all 3 of my games, and it looked like everybody had a really good time. And we actually had one of the tournament prize kits from Bellum. So we had certificates for the top 3 placers. We had some of the resin alternate sculpt heads and shields to give out as prizes for the top finishers of each faction. A bunch of codes for the online living story. And one player got the poster as well. Coming those kits. Those kits are actually pretty cool. If you're a Vanguard, you can order them off of the Bellum store to give out as prize support. And some of those stores that a lot of people play at should have them as well to give out prize support for events. And it's just like little things that people can't get otherwise unless they come to the event. So it's cool to get those in players' hands. So I was going to try to play my Old Dominion for this tournament. It was 1,500 points, but I just didn't have enough time to assemble my Varangian Guard and some more Praetorians, unfortunately. So I just stuck with my Spires, which I played in the last event, and I actually did pretty well with them. I had a ton of fun playing them. I ran a Directorate list with the High Clone Executor as my Warlord, and he had the Infiltrator variant with all the shooting build that gives him 8 shots and deadly shots with Armor Pierce 1, and he's gross. Throughout the whole tournament, he did a ton of damage, and just being in that unit that is so fast and mobile can stay away and stay alive to not give up those Warlord points if your opponent kills your Warlord, he's awesome. Not to mention his Supremacy ability to let me go first, or not first, but 3 times before my opponent gets to go with one of their units is just amazing. I mean, the look on my opponent's face was never amazing when I used it. I don't want to call it feels bad, but if you're in a bad spot, or the Spires player gets to go first with that and they go 3 times, it can swing a game so fast and just make it unwinnable if you're playing against that. So we'll see if that sticks around when they update the army list here in a few days. So here's my Warlord in Vanguard Clone Infiltrators, and also in his Warband I had a minimum unit of 3 stands of Force-Grown Drones, a unit of 6 Vanguard clones with the Ward Preceptor to give him Bastion, and then a unit of Brute Drones, just base 150 point Brute Drones. And then for my second Warband, which was my only other Warband, I had a Biomancer with Flesh Carver, as well as the Mastery of Flesh 1, and then the Degenerative Aura. And he's sitting in 8 stands of Force-Grown Drones. And man, his Degenerative Aura is just gross. It gives them lethal demise. So anytime you kill a Force-Grown Drone, you take hits back. That also does cause resolve tests. And that's anything from if you do impact hits, aura death to them, or just regular clashes, you take hits back. And they just are super cheap. They're not going to do anything on their own with their regular attacks, but the Biomancer can kind of buff them up and heal them. And so as you kill them, I heal them, and you take more and more hits as you try to kill this almost unkillable block of Force-Grown Drones. And then just to round out the list, there was one Abomination. 150 points, he's super fast. He's real sad against things that have hardened, as we'll talk about when I go over some of my games. But just that 20-inch move, he can be in just crazy places on the table, get behind your opponent for rear and flank charges, getting some charges that your opponent kind of wasn't expecting if you have a good reinforcement line. And in one of my games, he really did a lot of work for me. And before we get started with some of my games, just want to remind everybody that I'm affiliated with Frontline Gaming. If you go down in the description of the video, you'll see the link for my affiliate link to the store. And they stock all kinds of Conquest stuff. You can see they have some of the starter sets, First Blood starter sets, as well as even their mats and stuff like that if you're looking to build your own table at home. 15% off MSRP for everything that you buy through the link, so definitely go out there if you need some models. Check out Frontline Gaming, who offers also free shipping for any orders over $100, which is awesome. So I'll have my full army list down below in the comments. And I'm going to go over my 3 games here. Unfortunately, I didn't get many pictures of my first game, so I'm just going to put a slideshow up of, I was taking pictures of like, this is the table that was next to me with Droon and Dweg, or no, with Droon and Spires, that was for round 1. I think Dweg and Spires played the next round, but I was playing actually another Dweg player with my Spires, and we were playing on the Bulwark mission. And this game really came down to just how tough the Dweg were, and a couple of key charges that he got off into some of my units that really tied me down. The Dweg player I was playing, I've played a few times before, and it's kind of a joke that I just never can beat his Dweg. They're so tough. But I thought I kind of had it in the beginning of this game because I was doing a lot of damage with my Vanguard clones. The Vanguard clone infiltrators, their shots are always really, really good. Even with the Dweg's high defense and their high resolve, that deadly shots that can get put on them from the Biomancer can still make sure a lot of damage goes through, so they were doing really well. The force-grown drones were tanking a lot of stuff, as well as causing hits back through lethal demise. But unfortunately, just with the way the mission played out, the Dweg's toughness just allowed them to sit on the center of the table where everything is going to happen in this mission and just rack up points. Since I was not smart enough to take some pictures, we're just going to go over the scenario pack so you can kind of visualize why the Dweg's super high defense is really, really good in this mission. So as you can see here, everything happens in the center of the table. Yeah, you can hold those objectives from kind of far back, up to 12 inches up from your reinforcement zone. But that's really only getting you 3 points, and your opponent's probably getting 3 points also. And that's how it played out the whole game. I kind of held the one to my right if I was player 1 in this map, and he held the one to my left the entire game. And then I'm trying to go for that objective, and he's trying to go for the other objective. He managed to kill the center objective marker before I did, just because my force-grown drones aren't really rushing up there super fast, and he got some actually shooting onto it with some, I believe it was the little crossbow guys, or he might have just got a long charge on it. I can't remember. Oh no, Flame Berserkers. Flame Berserkers actually got a long charge on it really fast and managed to kill it, even though I engaged them with my Vanguard clones in the center. But the Vanguard clones just did not kill Flame Berserkers super fast. And they were one of my big disappointments in the tournament. I would say 350 points for 6 stands. And they have a ton of attacks, but I just don't think it's worth it. Bound clones are way cheaper, can be just as defensible with a Ward Preceptor in them, and with that support too, kind of get almost the same amount of attacks. And they're both Clash 2. I really think the Vanguard clones, for how expensive they are, if they went to Clash 3 with all those attacks, that would be really good. But it just hurt, coming into that Clash 2 with no cleave or anything like that special on them. And really what sealed the deal is later in the game, over on that B objective marker that I was trying to destroy, I kind of ignored it, knocked it down to 1 wound until the end of the game. My Vanguard infiltrators were over there, and they were really shooting hold things. They were shooting into the side of the Flame Berserkers, and they were shooting Dragon Slayers, I believe. But all that shooting into my opponent's army meant they didn't do that last wound to the objective marker. I thought, they'll be the only things left over there, and I can kill it later. Take it from me, when you have the chance to kill those objective markers for the points, just seal the deal. Because a long charge from some Dragon Slayers from my opponent locked up the Vanguard clone infiltrators. He went first next round, so they couldn't withdraw away in order to shoot the objective or shoot the Dragon Slayers. I think they were down to 1 or 2 stands at that point, maybe 2 stands. And he just killed the infiltrators, killed my Warlord off the table, and that got him a ton of points, and that kind of sealed the deal for my round 1 loss. So I did actually manage to get some pictures of my round 2 game. I played a City States player who, he played Dweg before. He's a very good strategic player, and our games were always a blast. I've played the same City States list before against him with basically this Spires list, and he has the giant hoplite unit with the polemark in it that has the anti-shooting tech, and they can move real fast. He's got I believe that's the Promethean, the buffing giant. He's got a proxy for that he 3-printed. It's awesome. 2 units of the High Cleave Minotaurs, and 1 unit of the Shield Minotaurs. This game really just came down to my big block, or my Vanguard clone infiltrators, went right for that middle objective. Oh, the mission was Maelstrom, I guess I should say. So the only thing you score points for in Maelstrom is the 3 objectives right across the center line. Some are worth 2, some are worth 1, and then it flip-flops in the beginning of the game and at the end of the game. So in this one, that really benefited me, knowing that it didn't matter if he killed my minimum unit of Force-Grown drones. I could just throw them away as a chaff unit. It didn't matter if eventually he killed my Warlord. As long as I got shots on stuff with my infiltrators beforehand, they could die at some point during the game. And I wasn't going to lose points just because I was the defensively weaker army here. So knowing that, I threw my Vanguard clone infiltrators kind of right in that big center objective. Just touching it turned to putting a fence kind of in front of them, and you can't really see it in the far left of the screen here. That fence is like right off the picture. And that big block of hoplites that you can see came straight for him. And I used my 3 stands of Force-Grown drones to block a little bit, but just leaving a long charge if my opponent wanted to make a long charge on a second activation. But he wouldn't get any impact because no matter how he charged, he was trying to measure it out, and just no matter how he did charge, he wouldn't get the impact. But I think he thought, having the hoplites there in the center, there were just Force-Grown drones on the other side too, so they're not in a ton of risk. But in order to go that far, they had to drop down to that defense 1 to get that movement at 8. So he did make the charge on the Vanguard clone infiltrators. Then when they went, they withdrew. They did lose a whole stand from that, unfortunately, taking the D6, just flat wounds. But because of their fluid formation, even though they're facing away after the withdrawal, they can shoot. And them shooting at defense 1 into the hoplites did a lot of work to them. It actually didn't totally decimate the unit like I was thinking it was going to. Because after that, to hold them in place, I charged the big Force-Grown drone unit into their flank with the plan of just now Vanguard clones are going to shoot you the rest of the game until you're dead, basically. And you can sit on that objective, but I'll sit on the other 2. I had brute drones and the big block that you see there of the Vanguard clones, and I was pretty confident that they could kill the Minotaurs that they were matched up against. And I even sent out an Abomination to help them out later. But with the big unit of Force-Grown drones in the center flanking them, he did a really interesting play where he went with his Polemark first, challenged my Biomancer, which obviously I said no thanks to that, broke my unit, and then he immediately went into the unit of hoplites that the Polemark was in to do a ton of attacks, and it was just enough to shatter the Force-Grown drone. So he killed, it was like 8 stands, including the Biomancer, just in one attack. And at first I thought I had him trapped where I wanted him, and I was like, oh man, he might get back into this. But it just turned out that my brute drones had a good charge on the other objective against the High Cleave Minotaurs and wiped them out just because there were 15 attacks with flurry plus their impact hits. I rolled really well and he rolled pretty poorly on defense. They're just not that defensible and they died. Same thing with the shields. Minotaurs right there, the Vanguard clones took care of them. So while we were fighting over the middle with that Promethean and another unit of hoplites that he sent over into the middle, he eventually held the middle, but I was holding 2 objectives to his 3 the entire game. So this one, the score wasn't that close, but it could have turned around if some things went differently for my opponent, like getting the impact initially on his charge, or even just killing stuff a little quicker in the middle and then being able to push out to those side objectives. Last round, played Dweg again. I was super pumped about that because I feel like this is the toughest faction in the game, especially for Spires. It's a tough matchup. At 1,500 points, I just don't have a ton of cleave in my list to lower that armor, and I'm kind of relying on weight of dice to do it. And like if they just roll high defense, it's a bad day. This mission was head-to-head, so you have on, if you're looking at the table, your left side, the further away objective is worth 4 points. If you get over there and hold that for any amount of time, you're probably going to win. There's a center objective on the right side of the table that either player can get for 3 points. and then you get points for regiment kills, character kills, and warlord. So I was a little worried about regiment kills in this game just because he was going to be able to kill my regiments faster. And I threw those Vanguard clones, that's the center objective. As soon as they could, Vanguard turn 2 right up onto that. And just hoping their Bastion would be enough to fight off those Hold Warriors. And it was, which is nice. That, you know, Vanguard clones can fight things like Hold Warriors and that class of unit. But if like that was Hold Thanes, they would have had no chance. And that's really why they were 350 point price tag. You might as well just take Bound Clones. But I sat on that objective all game comfortably with them. I put Brute Drones over there when those Dragon Slayers came to help out the Hold Warriors on that side. And the Brute Drones and Abomination were killed by the Dragon Slayers because they obviously have Fiend Hunter. And it probably wasn't the best thing to throw over there, but I just needed something to get in the Dragon Slayer's way to make sure they didn't get on that objective. It worked. And eventually they were taken out by the Vanguard clones towards the end of the game. And then over here, where the Force-Grown drone is with the Lethal Demise, that was 6 stands of Flame Berserkers. And that is all the way back on my point, where if his Flame Berserkers would have come, 4 inches closer to me, they would have been getting 4 points a turn. So the Force-Grown drones with Lethal Demise really, really hurt the Flame Berserkers, especially with Aura of Death no longer doing Resolve Test. I feel like that would have at least made that contest even, or probably tipped it more in his favor. But there was also a house just to the left of the Force-Grown drones that the Vanguard clones were hiding behind, so they were safe while they were just shooting into the flank of these Flame Berserkers. And it took multiple rounds to kill them, but eventually they died, and just with some reinforcement rolls and how the Dweg, don't have a ton of light units, it kind of came in waves, and instead of putting enough pressure in one area to overwhelm, unfortunately the Dweg reinforcement rolls forced him to kind of put, one unit out, and then one unit out, and then one unit out, and I could kind of deal with them as they came in waves on either side of the table. So this kind of got away from the Dweg home player, unfortunately, just because of how I was able to position and shoot things off the table. But it's a really good example of how in Conquest, even with an army like Dweg, where I don't have a ton of cleave, like I don't really have the tools, I would argue, to deal with this at that high defense. If you position well and use the terrain to your advantage on the table and really play to the mission, you can still win. There's no matchups. I used to play a lot of competitive 40K. I was never amazing, but I would definitely go into some matchups and just feel like I had a huge disadvantage just because of the army that I was playing. And I never feel that way in Conquest, which is really awesome. Even when you play some of the arguably weaker, quote-unquote, armies in Conquest, like 100 Kingdoms right now, some of the things that they can do and get, the points really don't mesh up or make sense. Their premier shooting unit is Longbowmen for 130 points, while way cheaper than Vanguard Clone Infiltrators. Don't put out anywhere near the amount of shot. They're more like marksman drones, which, I took out of my list and put in my Brute drones, so that should tell you something. So at the end of the day, we had an Old Dominion player come in first with 3 wins, no losses. My buddy came in second with 2 wins and a tie with his Nords. And third place came to the Dweg player that actually played round 1, who was 2-1. And then I actually managed to come in 5th. And 4th was another Spires player, which was pretty cool. So I finished 2-1 today with my Spires. I was pretty happy with it. Finally beat Dweg. And then I felt good even in my loss against Dweg that I could have won it if, just a couple things have gone more my way. And I'm totally cool with that. So I'm interested to see what happens with the army updates. I can't wait until they come out. And I'll definitely be releasing some videos, some faction focuses to see what changed and how it affects the overall meta, in my opinion, of the game. So thanks for listening, everybody. And eventually we're going to start doing some battle reports on the channel. Probably give it a few weeks just because work has been insane. But there'll still be more content coming, unit reviews, things like that. If you want me to review a certain unit, I've played 100 Kingdoms, Spires, and I'm starting my Old Dominion play, so I'm comfortable with those factions, but if you want me to do a different faction, I can definitely get with people in my gaming group and review other units as well. So let me know in the comments what you'd like to see. And until then, good luck on your Conquest games out there.